Good morning. Happy Thanksgiving. Welcome to the Calgary Unitarians community. Whoever you are, whomever you love, wherever you are on your journey of faith or search for meaning, welcome. If you are here for the first time or the first time in a long time, know that we are grateful to have you with us. As our statement of purpose says, we come together in beloved community to grow in wisdom, welcome and deepen relationships, and act for a just and sustainable world. My name is Alan Waugh. I have the privilege of serving on your board of trustees. Why am I a Unitarian Universalist? Because I feel I am at one with a timeless community of souls, each free to believe what reason and insight reveal as true. A community where my spirit soars in moments of song and insight. Let us now, wherever we are, remember and acknowledge the traditional territories of all those whose ancestors were here before us. We of the Calgary Unitarian community live on the traditional territories of the peoples of Treaty 7 region in southern Alberta. The peoples and languages of Treaty 7 include the Blackfoot First Nations of Siksika, the Piikani, and the Kainai, the Stoney Nakoda First Nations of Chiniki, Bearspaw, and Wesley, and the Dene First Nation band, the Tsutana. We are also in the homeland of the historic Northwest Métis and of Métis Nation of Alberta, Region 3. We acknowledge that we are all treaty people. After the service, please stay for coffee time, catch up with community and friends. Now, to Reverend Deborah for the lighting of our chalice.
The chalice is our communal cup. It quenches our thirsting for justice and connection. May our cup overflow with love for the earth and each other. May we drink faithfully and deeply, be agents of grace in the world, and may gratitude for life's many blessings be with us. Lighting this flame, we offer thanksgiving for life and for this community. I am so thankful for life in this community, where you are welcome, in the fullness of who you are, with your doubts and certainties, your amazing gifts and challenges. Don't leave your broken heart at the door. Bring it to this altar of life. Don't leave your anger behind. It has high standards and the world needs vision. Bring them with you, and your joys and your passion. Bring your loving and your courage and your conviction. Bring your need for healing and your power to heal. Bring your whole self here as we create our virtual sanctuary together. Since we have been doing virtual services, people have been joining us from across Canada and from the US, as well as those in our city who, for whatever reason, were limited in attending in person. They're all here. People send me thank you messages almost weekly for the chance to be part of this virtual community. So with all the challenges and disappointments of not being physically together, let us also acknowledge some of the gifts. And I want to extend my thanks this morning to Jim and Henrik, our AV wizards for today, to Paula for the PowerPoint slides, which were a bit complex today. Thank you. To Doug for hosting coffee, and Jane and Eileen, our musicians, who are with us by video today and still making such a huge contribution. My gratitude to Pam, the worship arts assistant, and Alan, today's board greeter. That felt a little bit like the credits at the end of a radio show. And truly, it takes credit, so many people, for making this Sunday service and the many other activities of Calgary Unitarians happen. I am, and would venture to say that we are all so very grateful. So I invite you to sing your gratitude with our opening song, Morning Has Broken.
Good morning, everyone. It's lovely to see you on this beautiful fall day. And I want to say last Sunday's popcorn theology for the children and youth was a huge success. And we were even joined by youth from the Westwood Edmonton congregation. We've been trying to all get together, and now that we're on Zoom, and it's been really wonderful. Today at 1 p.m., the elementary crew will be exploring Indigenous fall gathering traditions, as well as sharing their own individual family traditions. And we're going to practice gratitude about what we're thankful for and play a little bit of harvest scribble game, which is always popular. 2 p.m., with the youth, we'll be exploring A Chorus of Faiths. It's a program that builds interfaith youth leaders, and our workshop 1 today is Beyond Diversity. So I'm excited about that. Today I want to highlight the Nesconolith First Nations, who don't traditionally celebrate a Thanksgiving type harvest event, but this time of year would have been very important for their food security. And the following is from Bonnie Thomas, who is working to promote and educate people about traditional Nesconolith foods. Every time any one of our people did anything that took from Mother Earth, it was only as much as they needed, and there were always prayers. It was always being thankful every time you did something like that. Some of the traditional foods that were gathered from the Shuswap, BC area were wapato, that's a waterway starchy tuber, hazelnuts, juniper bark, which underneath there's a thin layer that tastes like candy, hawthorn, cranberries, and salmon to be air dried for winter. And what I love about this time of year is that there's a universality that connects all of us as we accept the bounty of Mother Earth and give thanks. And now I'd like to share a garden meditation by Reverend Max Coots. Let us give thanks for a bounty of people. For children who are our second planting, and though they grow like weeds and the wind too soon blows them away, may they forgive us our cultivation and fondly remember where their roots are. Let us give thanks for generous friends with hearts as big as the garden and smiles as bright as blossoms. For feisty friends as tart as apples. For continuous friends who, like scallions and cucumbers, keep reminding us we had them. For crotchety friends as sour as rhubarb and as indestructible. For handsome friends who are as gorgeous as eggplants and as elegant as a row of corn. And for others as plain as potatoes and so good for you. For funny friends who are as silly as Brussels sprouts and as amusing as Jerusalem artichokes, and serious friends as complex as cauliflowers and as intricate as onions. For friends as unpretentious as cabbages. As subtle as summer squash, as persistent as parsley, as delightful as dill, as endless as zucchini, and who, like parsnips, can be counted on to see you through a long winter. For old friends nodding like sunflowers in the evening time, and young friends coming on as fast as radishes. For loving friends who wind around us like tendrils and hold us despite our blights, wilts, and witherings. And finally, for those friends now gone, like gardens past that have been harvested, but who fed us in their times that we might have life thereafter. For all these, we give thanks. So much to be grateful for, a harvest of gratitude.
Well, I did my best there. Look at our table. It is so bountiful. Much from my own garden, some harvested just this morning. And I invite you now to join in a harvest of gratitude, a responsive reading. I will do the solid text and invite those living north of the Bow River to join me. The italicized text will be done by Pam, who lives south of the Bow, and I invite those who live in that area, or if you're not sure where your location is, north or south of the Bow, to join Pam. Once more the fields have ripened to harvest, and the fruitful earth has fulfilled the promise of spring.
The work of those who labor has been rewarded. They have sown and reaped, planted and gathered.
How rich and beautiful is the bounty gathered, the golden grain and clustered corn, the grapes of purple and green.
The crimson apples and yellow pears, and all the colors of orchard and garden, vineyard and field.
Season follows after season, after winter, the spring, after summer, the harvest-laden autumn.
From bud to blossom, from flower to fruit, from seed to bud again, the beauty of earth unfolds.
From the harvest of the soil, we are given occasion to garner a harvest of the heart and mind.
A harvest of resolve to be careful stewards of all life's gifts and opportunities.
A harvest of reverence for the wondrous power and life at work in things that grow and in the soul.
A harvest of gratitude for every good which we enjoy, and of fellowship for all who are sustained by earth's beauty. Let us now enter a centering time with the words of Sarah Campbell, Meditation for a Beautiful Day. The words will be followed by a minute of silence and a musical response. Ah, how beautiful is this day! How crisp and clean the air! How clear the sky! How full of life the teeming earth! And we are alive. Yes, we feel the beat of our own hearts, the pulsing of life in our veins, the rhythm of our breathing. We come into the silence of this time with gratitude for this day. We come also with our needs. Our gratitude stirs us to praise and sing our thanksgiving. Our loneliness draws us into the company of others. Our restlessness draws us into these moments of quiet. Our longing for the Spirit brings us before the mystery of the holy. Our desire to heal our own wounds and the wounds of our world brings us here to renew our strength and hope. And we come into this space because we have gifts to share, words of healing and encouragement for those who are burdened, songs of praise and hope, smiles of comfort and affection, deeds of love and kindness. Each of us comes to dip into the well that nourishes our hungry spirits. Each of us comes with our own cup of goodness to pour into the well. We drink together. May we be strengthened in our bonds of love and peace.
Let us come now to tend the sacred bonds that bind our lives to one another, affirming that what touches the life of one of us affects us all. In these moments, we seek to widen our caring ministry by sharing the joys, sorrows, and milestones in our own lives and the life of our congregation. There are so many concerns these days for all of us, and for some greater uncertainty than ever before in their lives. Challenges with precarious housing and finances. And there are concerns for health, physical, mental, and spiritual. All of us have at least some anxiety about the future and how our world will and has changed in the last year. As I light our candle of concern, I invite you to speak aloud or hold in the silence of your heart those fears and concerns that are with you. We recognize the challenges of life, and these days there are so many. And we know also that there are joys and celebrations as well. For the birthdays, anniversaries, and other milestones this week, congratulations. May you find ways to celebrate that satisfy your heart and spirit. I have received messages this week about recoveries from illness. Thanks be for that. And our refugee committee got word this week of one of our sponsor applications being approved, and that the Atrian family will hopefully arrive soon. Maybe just in time for Calgary winter? Welcome. I want to make a special mention of our beloved Director of Music, Jane Perry, who is currently in Ontario caring for her elderly parents. May the rest of her time be love-filled and her travel home this week be at ease and safe. As I light our candle of joy, I invite you to say aloud or hold in the silence of your heart the many expressions of joy you may be feeling. We light our global candle today in thanksgiving and with recognition of our many blessings, knowing that there are so many situations that need our concern as well. As I light our global candle, I invite you to, with a spirit of thanksgiving, extend your thoughts and energy to the wider world. May all that has been shared here strengthen and renew the bonds of this beloved community, in joy and in sorrow, in struggle and in success. May we together embrace life's blessings and withstand its challenges in the sacred hope that we might grow stronger through both. And now, let us sing our thanks. With Song 349, We Gather Together.
We gather together in joyful thanksgiving, acclaiming creation whose bounty we share. Both sorrow and gladness we find now in our living. We sing a hymn of praise to the life that we bear. We gather together to join in the journey, confirming, committing our passage to be a true affirmation in joy and tribulation. When bound to human care and hope, then we are free.
Every morning, I go into my garden to see what is new, what is blooming, and what is done. And yes, I talk to the plant beings in my garden and the buzzing ones, though I have to say that my words and my actions are not totally welcoming or at all welcoming of the slugs. A garden, I think, is such a great metaphor for life. Some of the bounty of mine you can see on our chalice table. And this afternoon, as my thanksgiving, I will harvest the rest with the danger of snow coming this week. Life, it's growing, blossoming, coming to fruit, responding to dangers and responding to nature are so what we do as well in our individual lives. This day or tomorrow, where we live here in Canada, we celebrate the harvest. For me, this encompasses the fullness of life and death, this cycle in which we all participate, the fullness of heart and its aching, the bounty of relationships in our lives and their brokenness. This is in many ways a complex holiday. For all this abundance and for hearts that care and share, we are so very grateful. For food, in a world where many walk in hunger, for faith in a world where many walk in fear, for friends in a world where many walk alone, we give thanks. This is a simple blessing that touches me and I use often. Since the beginning of time, people have celebrated when the harvest is gathered in the autumn of the year. They are some of the oldest known celebrations. All the energy put into gardening or gathering comes to fruition. The earth is exploding with abundance. When there is so much food provided by the earth, we feel blessed and thankful. It seems a natural thing. It wells up from within, and I know I can hardly help myself but smile with thanks. The holiday we now name Thanksgiving Day for me is, as I said, complex. Complex because it is so tied to our relationship with the original people of this land. History tells us that the first celebration of Thanksgiving in North America was here in Canada, and it wasn't actually a celebration of harvest. It happened in 1578, almost 450 years ago. There were many Europeans traveling to this continent. Many were settlers looking for a better life, escaping poverty or persecution, often for their religious beliefs. Refugees escaping across water is and was a common practice. Some were also explorers who claimed to have discovered this land. And we know that there were already many people here, the indigenous people of this land, thousands and thousands of people. The explorers came in. Interesting, isn't it, that explore and exploit sound so similar? And they wanted to explore the whole continent. Some were searching for a way to China. Their mode of travel was by boat and on foot. One of the explorers, Martin Frobisher, tried to get to China by traveling across the north. Well, there's only a few months each year when a ship could pass because of ice. Many, if not most, explorers did not make it. Some died trying, and Martin Frobisher almost did too. He was very lucky to make it to Newfoundland before the ice closed his exit route. The First Nations people there gave him fish and their traditional bread. I can only imagine how thankful he was to see them. In Newfoundland, he held a formal ceremony to celebrate his safe passage. So the first Thanksgiving in Canada was a celebration of gratitude for life, safety, this beautiful land, her bounty, and her people. Many of the traditions we have today at Thanksgiving come from south of the border in the United States, things like turkey and pumpkin pie. Much of the modern Thanksgiving holidays traces its origins to a 1621 celebration at Plymouth Plantation, where the Plymouth settlers, some of our Unitarian ancestors, held a harvest feast after a successful growing season. They celebrated because it was their first harvest. The winter before, they had run out of food they brought with them. Luckily, members of the Wampanoag tribe, the indigenous people of that place, taught those early settlers how to catch eels and grow corn. So the early European settlers, pilgrims, set apart a day to celebrate at Plymouth immediately after their first harvest. The Wampanoag people are currently fighting for the return of their traditional lands. At the time, it was not regarded as a Thanksgiving observance. It was a harvest festival. And as I said, harvest festivals existed all over the world. This one was celebrated by the Pilgrims and the Wampanoag together. It was about saying thank you and sharing. Many UUs and others in the U.S. are challenging the celebration of Columbus Day, which is tomorrow, and instead calling for a celebration of Indigenous Peoples Day. Some say Thanksgiving is a very significant holiday because it is one of the first holidays that wasn't a religious-based celebration. Sometimes there has even been a vote to decide what the focus should be for Thanksgiving. This reminds me of the importance of each and every vote, always. So this morning we celebrate Thanksgiving with gratitude for so much abundance in our lives. Clean air and water, food to eat, and people to share it with, even though our bubbles may be smaller, in person. The richness of human relationships is to be celebrated, and the glory of our natural world. We come also to honor our principles that affirm the dignity and equality of every person. Our responsibility to search for truth and work for a just world community. For me, Thanksgiving has always been connected with the historical story of early settlers and explorers coming to this land. I learned about it in school and in my Unitarian Sunday school classes. My parents were engaged with the Stoney people living in Morley when I was very young, and we were part of their celebration cycle. As Sheila mentioned as well, the Indigenous peoples celebrated harvest. The stories were mostly about gratitude and helping each other. What I never learned about in school was the doctrine of discovery. When I did learn about it about 10 years ago, I shared it with you, and many people told me they had never heard of it. So it does bear repeating, particularly in our current situation, as we are looking at dismantling racism. For more than 500 years, the doctrines of discovery have shaped interactions and treatment of non-Europeans. The origin of the doctrine can be traced to Pope Nicholas V's issuance of a papal bull in 1452, which allowed Portugal to claim and conquer lands in West Africa. Pope Alexander VI extended it to Spain, the right to conquer newly found lands, in 1493, after Christopher Columbus had already begun doing so. Arguments between Portugal and Spain led to a treaty. Gotta love those treaties, which clarified that only non-Christian lands could thus be taken. Henry VII issued similar decrees to explorers heading out from England. The doctrines of discovery reinforce and justify a worldview of white European supremacy and manifest destiny that allowed domination and enslavement of non-Christians and justified occupation of lands and the taking of those resources. Its influence is still present in attitude and action, and is embedded in laws and structures of governance around the world. Colonialization spread. The root of the oppression of Indigenous people today have been traced to these doctrines of discovery. Though for the first 200 years or so of contact, there was a sharing. There are remnants of the doctrines of discovery still evident in many constitutions. This, I hope, is one of those things when brought to light covers forever our perception. I wonder if it shifts your perspective today. I find myself with a different level of scrutiny about issues in the news. Is the doctrine of discovery, manifest destiny, living out in today's political landscape? I think so. Addressing this today is not intended to lay a guilt trip, though some of those feelings may well come up for those of us of European descent. It is rather a call and a challenge to become more informed and perhaps a little outraged, that we may be more conscious of the residue of this within ourselves and in the political and social systems in which we are embedded. Just as we have addressed personally and systemically the issues of homophobia with our welcoming congregation work. So we need to be aware of the influence of the doctrines of discovery and to educate ourselves beyond the often sanitized or colonialized history that has been taught and is the dominant paradigm. While today I have focused primarily on the relationship with the first peoples of this land, this paradigm of colonialism and white superiority impacts all people of color and all of us who are white as well. Systems are in place that perpetuate preferential treatment of some over others, and I want to work to change that system. It requires first awareness and educating ourselves. It requires radical look at our own actions and thoughts, as well as the systems. But I want to be a greater agent for justice and equality. So we learn about it in our heads, feel compassion with the most affected, and righteous rage, I hope, that motivates us to change our hearts and then put our hands to the task of transformation. This is my biggest message for today. This is actually how we live our faith, with gratitude and awareness. By being inspired and learning, and then putting that into action. When I look in my garden, how can I say that the dahlia is more beautiful than the sunflower? Or the tomatoes more important than the beets? The fullness, the diversity within a garden is necessary for it to be healthy, as it is in our human life as well. I'm so thankful for the garden, for my own capacity to grow and learn and change, for the relationships in my life. I am grateful for life itself. Gratitude is my daily spiritual practice, and I celebrate a day, Thanksgiving Day, when others too focus on gratitude and life's gifts. May it be so, and Alan may just have a few words about sharing your gifts.
Let us remind ourselves this festival holiday that we give thanks by giving. Giving is gratitude in action. May sharing our time, our talent, and our wealth with our community, may each of us grow and know that through giving, we show our thanks. Please give as generously as you are able.
The closing song that we chose for today, We Give Thanks, was written by a Unitarian community minister from Kingston, Ontario. She works for food security. That's the primary focus of the work that she does. And I invite us to think about that and to think of this as a blessing also on the food that you will share with your families. I thank you and I invite you to sing joyfully, We Give Thanks.
Oh, we give thanks for this precious day, for all gathered here and those far away, for this time we share with love and care. Oh, we give thanks for this precious day. Oh, we give thanks for this precious day, for all gathered here and as far away, for this food we share with love and care. Oh, we give thanks for this precious day.
Close our service today with the words of Reverend Max Coots, Attitude of Harvest. The harvest will be an attitude, not a time of year. And maybe I'll be wise enough to feel a sort of litany of gratitude for seeds that, like memories and minds, keep in themselves the recollection of what they were and the power to become something more than they are. For soil, that accumulation of lives piled up by death that gives new life. For the justice of the earth that gave me about as many weeds and wilt and scab and bugs as vegetables, but in the end gave me enough for what I need. For hands, those miracles on the ends of my arms that let me tend my vegetables and pull my weeds, and for mind enough to know the difference between the two. For calluses, life's defense against the softness that makes survival difficult. For the ability to work and the will to work and the work to do and the time to do it. And finally, for that sense of kinship to all, that singleness, that unity that is the basis of faith. And now I'll invite Reverend Deborah to extinguish our chalice.
Before I extinguish the chalice, I want to again extend an invitation to you to join us for coffee and conversation. When you close and leave this room, a page will come up with a coffee cup on it. All you need to do is click on that coffee cup, and you will be joined and put into a small group. Please make sure you introduce yourselves to each other in the small groups. There may be somebody new in our midst, or some like me who forget names. I invite you to enjoy each other's good company, for truly it is a thanksgiving to have community, to be in community, and to know that what we are building is a possible beloved community. I extinguish the light of our chalice, holding all of our thanksgiving and our care for this community, now taken within the flame that burns within each of us, as we do our work of justice in the world and celebrate Thanksgiving. With this, I extinguish our chalice. And join now, please, in singing our sung benediction, Spirit of Life. And I thank Tri-U for recording it so that we would have it to sing along with. Blessings on each of you.
Spirit of life, come unto me. Sing in my heart all the stirrings of compassion. Blow in the wind, rise in the sea, move in the hand, giving life the shape of joy.